I have finally come to a One Piece movie that has the runtime of a typical movie, and boy does it benefit from the length. Released on March 3rd, 2003, Dead End Adventure is the fourth One Piece movie and follows the Straw Hats through a competitive pirate race for some big money prize. This movie was released on March 3rd, 2003, the same day where Zoro, Wiper, Gonfall, and Ohm all posed dramatically against each other in the manga, and the last anime episode released before this movie was when the Straw Hats arrive at Mocktown and meet Bellamy. I've been saying this about every One Piece movie I've reviewed so far, but I think this one is better than the previous ones. I feel like Dead End Adventure signals the start of a new phase in One Piece movies, and I appreciated everything that was on display because it actually feels like a story worthy of a movie, rather than just what could have been handled in a handful of filler episodes. From the jump, you can tell this movie had more confidence in the story it was telling. We don't even see the Straw Hats right away, but instead are with some Marines caught in a storm who see the going merry. They offer some exposition for people unfamiliar with the series, essentially just letting the audience know the Straw Hats are notorious pirates, but it also establishes two important details for the movie. One, there are a large amount of pirates gathering nearby for a race, and two, a traitor from the Marines will be among them, Gaspardi. I really appreciated this Marine framing scene because it sets up the events of the movie early, which allows the pacing of the movie to breathe a bit more, so the film doesn't rush the Straw Hats into the crux of the movie action. This is followed by a pretty cool CGI tracking shot throughout the nightlife of this scummy pirate city that I also appreciated. The CGI doesn't look great, but it's cool to see this movie trying something entirely unique to the medium. I think that's something these movies should utilize far more often, since they don't have to worry about being direct adaptations of the manga. Show off a little bit here and there. This eventually leads to an underground bar where the Straw Hats are all eating dinner. Since the last One Piece movie, Robin has joined the crew. Once again, I'm going to participate in a game I like to call, hey, even though these movies aren't canon and don't really fit into canon, let's try and squeeze them into canon. Of all the movies so far, this one can actually fit the most plausibly into the continuity of the story. It's very clearly set between Alabasta and Jaya, following the defeat of Crocodile, but before Luffy's wanted poster was updated. In fact, at the end of this movie, we see Luffy's bounty go up, and it's very clearly leading directly into Jaya. So for once, you don't even need to squint to pretend this movie could make sense. Also, they're flat broke. Nami smells an opportunity to make some money, which they desperately need, and she convinces the barkeep to guide them to an opportunity. That is, of course, a race between pirates. This whole island is made up of ex-pirates who host this race every few years. I thought this race was gonna go down much differently than it did, because there is a fun collection of rapscallions here, including a team of giants and a team of fishmen, led by one of Arlong's supposed rivals. However, no one else is important except for the main villain, which was kind of disappointing. Something that would be the opposite of disappointing, appointing, is if you clickety-clack that like button if you're enjoying this video. This scene of the Straw Hats hanging out in this seedy criminal bar and getting up to some shenanigans is pretty fun. Luffy is eating everyone's food, and there is a clear reference to the Bellamy smashing Luffy through the bar moment when this character, Shiraya, does pretty much the exact same thing. There are a couple moments like that throughout this film that are essentially reskins of scenes from the rest of the series, which is especially apparent during the big climactic fight. Actually, it's also kind of apparent with the introduction of Gaspardi, who has an overall crocodile vibe, although I will say that his aesthetic of being an ex-marine was pretty cool. Shiraya, who is a bounty hunter, and Gaspardi are two of the four movie original characters that actually matter to the plot. Another is Anaguma, the mandatory One Piece movie child character, and the grandfather who takes care of Anaguma, who is a sick old man working on Gaspardi's ship's boiler. Anaguma gets permission to hunt pirates for their bounties to get medicine money for Gramps, and you know where this is going. After all this setup, the race finally begins, and I thought this sequence in particular was really fun. Again, it takes elements from other One Piece moments, but it's not shy about it. The beginning of this race is openly compared to Reverse Mountain, with all the pirate ships traveling up, only to fall down the Grand Fall. Once the race begins, all the pirate ships start firing cannons at each other and trying to board each other's ships. This was some good old-fashioned swashbuckling action that we rarely see in One Piece, so I did appreciate it here. Very quickly, it's clear that literally none of the other pirate ships matter though, because the giants who were set up early on just crash into land and that's that, whereas Arlong's rival is easily taken out by Gaspardi, off-screen. During this chaos, it's revealed that Anaguma stowed away aboard the Mary. Anaguma has to endure capture by Zoro, treatment by Chopper, lecturing by Nami, and overall taunting by Luffy and Robin. Pick the wrong ship, kid. Even with the extended runtime, the climax of this movie still manages to feel pretty rushed, and I'll tell you why. These movies can't really have big character moments for the Straw Hats because they are non-canon, so instead they rely on movie original characters for their arcs, which is why there's always a kid in these movies. In the case of this movie, they don't just give Anaguma an arc, but Shiraya one as well, which is on top of some convoluted interconnected backstory that Grandpa pieces together. This isn't necessarily an issue, but because so much of the movie has to focus on the Straw Hats, because that's what people are here for, it means that these plot developments end up feeling pretty rushed by the end. So, the Straw Hats are following their eternal pose to a trap set up by Gasparde, where all the other pirate ships have been sunk by Marines. While this is going on, Shiraya comes back into the movie after not having done much of anything since his intro at the bar. We find out 8 years ago, Gasparde slaughtered his whole hometown, including his kid's sister, and he's the sole survivor who's been out to get revenge since then. He is willing to throw his life away to get his revenge, which is similar to Anaguma's mindset. So, for really no specified reason, Shiraya decides now, on his ship and in the middle of a storm, he's gonna fight Gasparde solo. He manages to take down his right-hand man, Needles, but then gets fucked up by Gasparde really easily. The Straw Hats find Gasparde's ship, and Luffy rockets over for some action before Shiraya is killed. I'm not gonna go through all the specifics here, because there are a lot of moving pieces, but basically, things boil down to Luffy versus Gasparde in a one-on-one fight on Gasparde's damaged ship as a cyclone approaches them. I think the setting for this final fight is awesome. It was just a good idea for a classic pirate showdown. Everything else, though, we've all seen before. A lot of this fight is a recreation of the various Luffy fights against Crocodile, down to some shot-for-shot action beats when Luffy is testing himself against Gasparde's Logia body. I guess I should say that Gasparde is a candy man who is made of candy syrup. I did think it was cool to see Gasparde do something surprisingly no villains since Buggy in Orange Town is done, go after the Straw Hat. And I mean, he really tears it to pieces here. The fight is resolved in the same way Luffy beat Crocodile, except instead of using water or blood against sand, he uses flour against syrup. Overall, fun fight with a dope setting, but wasn't anything groundbreaking. Grandpa managed to save Shiraya and Luffy from the sinking ship, while it's revealed Anaguma is a girl? Yep, turns out in a twist anyone could have seen coming, Anaguma is Shiraya's thought-to-be-dead sister, and the siblings are reunited. The pirates are cut off from finishing the race since the Marines from the beginning of the movie are waiting for them at the finish line, so they sail off and that's really that. Overall, I feel like this movie stepped up to actually be a movie rather than a long TV special, and it was a solid, self-contained adventure that did hit a lot of familiar beats, but remix them enough to be entertaining without being bogged down in too many of the tropes of the previous films. I thought it was refreshing how there's no mandatory Sanji or Zoro fight with the main bad boy's henchmen. I thought the whole idea of a race between pirates was a really fun one, and the beginning of the race itself was probably my favorite part of the whole movie. It just gave me those One Piece pirate feels that I love. As I said at the beginning, I feel like this movie could have ushered in a new era of One Piece movies. If this is the template going forward for the next few, that would actually make me pretty happy. While this movie isn't perfect, I appreciate being taken on an adventure worthy of a movie that occasionally uses the medium to its advantage in unique ways. There were some downsides to this film, like the rushed character arcs for the movie original characters, and the weird, at times, shot-for-shot remakes of scenes from the main series. I think when it's an homage, like the Shiraya Bellamy Luffy smash, that's fine, even though at the time that moment had just been adapted in the anime, but when the entire climax is a condensed reskin of the last major arc's boss fights, that feels a little too cheap to me. So, while not perfect, Dead End Adventure is the best One Piece movie yet. On the scale of out-of-canon early 2000s anime movies, this one definitely gets an 8.5 out of 10. I thought it was really solid, and I could actually see myself watching scenes from this sometime in the future. But what did you think? What do you think about Gasparde as a character? Please let me know that in the comments, and stay tuned for my review of The Cursed Holy Sword coming out tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching, and until then, I'll shut up.